Hey everyone. Um, I just wanted to just take the time to just talk about the church planting residency, what's going on with the Bills family, um, and just share a little bit on this journey, um, what led us to this point. And I realize a lot of you have been supporting us and following us for a long time. Um, and so I just wanted to provide a little bit of context in what led to this, the Lord's calling, and even what is the residency. And so I just wanted to take a period to have an honest conversation with you all and to just share more detail. I know that we've said in various email updates and in short videos, hey, this is what we're doing. And we haven't really had the heart, not the, excuse me, the opportunity um, to just share more behind this, to share maybe the fuller picture. And so many of you, since you've joined our ministry updates and have been following us, you might be like, hey, I thought you guys were missionaries in Turkey. Like, what is this church planting thing? Like, how, we gave money, maybe a smaller amount or a significant amount. What do you, like, how did that happen? Um, so I wanted to just provide a little bit of clarity to that and how we got to this position. So the long, um, the long story made short. This was a much more complicated thing, but the essence of what happened was we were just unable to stay in Turkey. The government didn't provide a visa for us. We went through a few ministry breakups and just some various things um, on the mission field, and no hard feelings or anything related to that, but just the Lord was very clearly closing doors that we thought were open. Um, and so we found ourselves displaced. Um, and um, just due to that, we came back to the States, and we were like, okay, well, um, Marissa's pregnant and we're expecting our first, so like let's just focus on that, get involved with just you know mission sending endeavors, and just let's just reassess after our daughter was born. And so um, we waited until that period, and we had been getting reports that Turkey had increasingly become more closed. I had various friends tell me that you know they had friends that were blacklisted or they themselves were kicked out, and I had a friend of mine who was a few weeks away from proposing to his now wife, and she got blacklisted and deported. And so he had to assess how to do all that. Thankfully, they're married now and involved in the ministry, but there were just a lot of complicated situations related to obtaining legal status in Turkey. And so it just became increasingly more clear to us that God was shutting the door um, for us in Turkey. And so during around the time, the Lord really began to emphasize to me about Act 13, about the community in Antioch, about creating, sending communities that would, raise up and send laborers, not just to the local region, but to the ends of the earth. And originally, what I thought it meant was getting involved in training and sending missionaries. But over time, as the Lord began to really mold this, I began to see, hey, this is actually way more than just a parachurch organization type thing. The vision that the Lord is laying on our hearts is actually for local church ministry, for church planting in particular. And around that same time, the Lord began to lay my home state of California upon mine and my wife's heart, with an emphasis on San Diego. Now, if you know anything about San Diego, it's right on the border of Mexico, but it's also a growing center for refugees and immigrants, and not just from Latin America, but I was talking to one of the Southern Baptists there with the North American Mission Board, the SBC's church planting in America organization, and I was talking to the guys there in San Diego, and they talked about a little region in San Diego that they call Little Baghdad because it's full of Iraqis and Syrians and various other Muslim refugees. And so San Diego is really a growing Antioch, per se, a growing global city where there are all kinds of ethnicities and cultures and even languages spoken. And so that really began to grow in our hearts, and I really really started to get a conviction to see the gospel preached in California and to see, missionaries and church planters sent to these unreached people groups. And imagine if we could reach a Turk or an Arab in San Diego and they're discipled and raised up, and we send them back to their own country. Because right now it's getting really hard to stay in these unreached people groups in the nations that they live in. And so just a few things that the Lord began to really, line up in our hearts, and we just became clear, the Lord is calling us to church plant in California. And so we're like, okay, well, what does that look like? What's the first steps? And we got the opportunity to do this church planting residency with the Village Church. The Village Church, if you're not familiar with it, is pastored by Matt Chandler, and it's in Flower Mound here in Texas, and it's part of the Acts 29 network and the SBC, the Acts 29 being a organization focused on church planting. And they've got this beautiful residency that lasts about 17 months that really focuses on building and equipping men and their families to do the work of evangelization and church planting and local church ministry. And Tyler Powell, he used to work with Acts 29 back in the day, and he still works with Acts 29. But the Village asked him a few years back, 8 years back, I believe it was, to create this residency because they were like, we want to really get involved in church planting. And so he built this amazing program that I am currently in the middle of. Amazing, rigorous, challenging. And the pastor of the church we attend, King's Church in Louisville, Josh Yen, he actually is the one that recommended me for the residency, and he himself went through the residency. And so I'm actually doing a dual residency with King's Church and with the Village Church. And it's amazing. And so, I got accepted into this residency after a lot of prayer on the Village's side and consideration, and obviously on our side. And we just have become so convinced that the work of the gospel to preach the gospel, to make disciples, to plant gospel-centered communities in San Diego, California, that's what the Lord was calling us to do. And that's how we'll reach the nations. Because we very much, Marissa and I, very much still have a heart to reach unreached people groups. And you might ask yourself, well, hey, San Diego's in America, and, America's pretty Christian, so, that's not really unreached. Well, growing up in California, I could tell you that California is definitely an unreached people group. Californians. If you grew up in the Bible Belt, you're very familiar with pervasive Christian culture. You go to a coffee shop, there's Christians everywhere, there's Christian businesses, churches on every corner. That's not really a thing in California. As a matter of fact, the SBC estimates that there are about 6% in San Diego alone. 6% of people in San Diego are somewhat affiliated with an evangelical church, which is astounding compared to the DFW, Texas, and greater Bible Belt region, which is much higher. I don't have the exact amount, but it's much higher than that. And combined with that and the fact that we have Chinese, Japanese, Arab, Turkish, Jewish, these large unreached people groups that are living in that region. If you know anything about me and my Jewish heritage, I have a huge heart to reach Jews, and there's 100,000 of them in the San Diego area, which is insane. And so we feel like the Lord is calling us to, engage in missions just from the States, and to be a church that plants churches in San Diego. And so, yeah, that's where we're at. I'm in the middle of this residency. It'll last until about November of next year. And it's a full-time thing, super rigorous. Was just working on some of the things for my cohorts, which is our classes that we have a few times a week, going through the study of Acts and church planning. Super intense, but super amazing, super stretching and building. And so we'll do that. And the plan is on completion of the program to be assessed by Acts 29, to be an endorsed church planner with them, and also to plant with the Southern Baptist Convention, just to really have that support behind us. And so, yeah, that's where we're at. We're hoping to take a vision trip to San Diego. We're connected with the SEND people, the North American Mission Board people there in San Diego, and we're hoping to get with them in the next few months and really nail down the exact area and neighborhood that the Lord is calling us to. And so we're really looking forward to that. And so with that being said, this is also a fundraise position, meaning for the residency and then beyond for when we church plant, it's my responsibility to raise our salary, which includes our living expenses, health insurance, retirement, all these things that would normally be provided by in your full-time job. That is what I'm raising support through, and we're partnered with Reliant Mission, who will be processing my support indefinitely. I'm super grateful for their system and how they do things. And so, yeah, we are still currently raising support. We are not fully funded. And so if you are watching this video and you feel the Lord leading you to give, or if you don't feel the Lord leading to give, I would invite you to ask the Lord, hey, are you leading me to do this? Because really, the work of church planting and the work of proclaiming the gospel, it's not possible without the backing of the church, of believers who will fund men and their teams as they church plant. And so I would like to invite you and to challenge you to ask the Lord, hey, how can I partner with Jonathan and Marissa as they seek to church plant? And we have people that are giving us $10 a month. We have people that are giving us a few hundred a month. There's no amount that's too little or too small. And you are making the work of the gospel possible. And so, yeah, I just want to invite you to do this. Can you pray for us in this time that the Lord would bring great connections for us as, we go through this journey. Really praying for the Lord to send a co-planter, just a Barnabas, another man that would just come alongside and share the vision, and just praying for the Lord for a core team that will help us get launched, and just pray for our family as we just navigate this transition and as we start to church plant. And so, yeah, if you have any questions, you have the ability to comment those questions, and I can see them. And so if you have any questions about the nature of the church planting residency or our calling to California, please comment your questions, and I would love to answer them, whether to you personally, or if I get enough of them, maybe I can just make a Q&A video. And so, yeah, guys, thank you for taking these 15 minutes to hear from me, and I pray that the Lord would bless you as you go throughout your week and make his name known. All right, guys.